See here, it applies both space and ground, which is very useful, as at the moment you cannot swap your specialization, say have a build for space and a build for ground, so you'd be able to use this and not have to go to a social zone or sector space every time you wanted to change it. Also, one thing you might notice, on my hotbar I've got various different abilities, including this one here from the Miracle Worker specialization. The Constable specialization, there isn't any ability that you put on your hotbar, either in ground or in space, so it's all passive. You get all these bonuses just simply by having it slotted. So to do that, you'd go to Skilled, Specialization, select it, and then obviously click that little button there, and there it is, that's it equipped. That would be it equipped if I didn't have it there already. So let's have a look at the passive, well, the more passive ability, the leveling bonus that you'll get as you invest more points into the ability. I'll tell you how to get those points in just a second. So as you level up the antagonist, so from what I found, just basically the target you have selected, so that's me, so if I was selecting a target, I just click on it and, well, let me step out here a second actually. There we go, Ambassador Strass, for my demonstration purposes, you are my target. If he was an enemy, which he's not, we're in the Alliance now, it's all good. He would be marked as my antagonist, and I would start getting bonuses if we were fighting. I'm gonna head back into, well, in Stowe, it's Curlin's office. Just sit down there. He won't mind. I've done enough for him. He won't mind me sitting in his chair. Anyway, back to specialization. So yeah, that target you clicked on, that is your quote-unquote antagonist. And you gain increasing amounts of armor penetration. This applies both in space and ground, up to plus 25 armor penetration, which it's just over 1% that you gain for every point you put into the specialization. And you start getting it as soon as you've put at least one in, and that applies for any of the specializations. You put 1 point into it and have it equipped, you will start getting a bonus from having it equipped. So if you're close enough, so you see there 10 kilometers in space, 35 meters on ground, aka the range you have to be to fire most of your weapons. There are some special cases that can fire from further, and some that aren't able to use until you're closer, such as melee weapons on ground. As you can see here, I've got 15 points in Constable, so I've got all 25 armor pen that I would have over after 4 seconds when fighting in antagonist. So as you can see, it's very good for single target battles. So if you're firing, say, beam fire at will in space, or your split beam rifles targeting multiple enemies, you're not going to see as much of a benefit. However, one-on-one fights, you're going to see a lot of use from this. And as I mentioned earlier, because it is space and ground, the bonuses you see here, so all damage resistance from your antagonist, control ability effectiveness, and a reduction of stealth, a stealth debuff, if you will, on your antagonist that increases over time. All those and many other will apply to the antagonist, and they will apply to your antagonist if it's a starship or if it's a bloke running around with a big gun. Don't pay no attention to that Boolean cannon I have on my back. That's not an excuse. Anyway, let's go through the abilities that we've got here. As I said, it's only a tier 2, so you can see there's only 15 abilities that you will unlock. So let's start from the top. Close the gap. 15% boost to your speed, either flight or run when you're in space. That improves to 30% when you get Closing the Gap 2. Confiscate. Your weapons gain a chance to remove the buff from your antagonist. Very nice, I found, when fighting opponents that like to use a lot of, especially sciencey abilities to boost them, or engineering things to give them resistance, and tactical just to generally boost their damage. That will obviously it's only a 5% chance in space and 10% chance in ground, but this is on all of your weapons. So especially in space, if you're firing, say, 8 beam arrays at someone, that's 5% chances that you'll have to remove several buffs, the 5 longest duration buffs. So if you're hitting a lot of those, then they're not going to get any boosts. Moving on, Eye of the Prize and Eye of the Prize 2. So 15 to 120 and 30 to 240 debuff to your antagonist's stealth. Very useful when fighting Romulans and Jem'Hadar and all those others who like to go invisible from time to time. Singular Focus, I mentioned this earlier. It is a increased damage resistance rating from people who are not your antagonists. So yeah, anyone who's not the person you have or ship that you have selected won't be doing as much damage to you. Let's say you're in the middle of a Borg fleet. I could target the tactical cube. After a few seconds, the Borg cube is my antagonist, and all those little spheres and probes and whatever floating around, they're going to be doing a lot less damage to me, which is very nice because I normally play in the very squishy starship. So any damage resistance boosting ability or passive is always welcomed. Subdue 1 and Subdue 2, a bonus control effectiveness versus your antagonist. So this is abilities such as Gravity Well in space. That's going to be even more effective. And so obviously if you're a science captain and you've put points into your control abilities in your space skill, there we go. So if you put points in here, it's going to be even more effective, even more deadly, or even more annoying if you're the unfortunate enough to be antagonist. Tunnel Vision. Pretty much what Subdue is, but a resistance to the control effects that are not coming from your antagonist. So looks like similar with the damage resistance. If those Borg probes I mentioned earlier used Gravity Well or Tractor Beam, they'd be less effective, and I could get back on with fighting my antagonist a lot quicker. Moving on to the Tier 2 abilities, we have Tear Down. Just a flat 10% bonus all damage to your antagonist. Gotta love a bit of extra damage, nothing wrong with that. Crackdown. I like this one. It steals a load of healing. 25% or 1/4 of hull healing and hit point healing. So that's that green bar there you can see here. 25% of the healing that your antagonist does is instead applied to you. So when I've been against a couple of tanky opponents who like to heal several 100,000 points of hull damage or whatever in a couple of clicks, they'll find that my ship's been healed too. Or on ground, similarly, if someone's using a regenerator ability, the medical turret that they put down that puts off the healing field for their health, I will be healed as well, which is always very nice. Wear Down decreases the health regeneration rate of your antagonist. So on top of them not getting 25% of any healing, what the healing that they do get will be from 10% down to 80% less effective. That potentially will change. It is incredibly powerful. Obviously it is an exponential as the healing gets more effective, and especially with critical healings now, the critical heals will heal you for a lot more. Obviously, that 25% of the amount that they would heal goes to you, and the 75% of the remaining, you reduce that again by 80%, and, well, it's almost time for them to put a different ability on. I wouldn't recommend it. Obviously, keep hazard emitters and various other healing abilities if you can. But they're not going to... If you're someone's antagonist, and it would be interesting to see how that stacks up with multiple people having the same antagonist. I imagine it would be a diminishing return, obviously, so it wouldn't be 160% less health regeneration if there's two people. I imagine it'd be something like, well, it would probably still be more than 100, which is just insane if it's stacked. I don't imagine it will. I haven't, unfortunately, been able to test it with multiple people firing on the same target, or me, woo. But potentially, I see this skill being changed the most before full release, because that 80% is huge and incredibly useful for people who don't have, say, the top 10% damage output or something like that on ground and space. Something like this helping you out will be very, very useful with the other effects that you've got so far too. Alright, last two. Within reach, your weapons have a chance to reduce their turning and their impulse speeds, or on ground it reduces their run speed. Effectively, this is a more effective version of the snare modifier that you can receive on beam arrays and torpedoes, and yeah, I believe that's it. Beams, torpedoes, space weapons, and there may be a couple of ground weapons that have it too. I unfortunately don't have an encyclopedia to have all of the weapons in. You know, if you want to start a GoFundMe for that cybernetic implant, I'd put my £5 in for that. Just saying. And they're within reach to upping that to a 33.3% chance, or 1 in 3 of your... No, I'm reading that completely wrong there. Apologies. It's keeping the 10 and 20% chance respectively for space and ground, and is upping the effectiveness from 20% to 33.3%. Apologies there again. But, as I mentioned with the, where is it? Here we go, confiscate skill. The more weapons you have firing on your antagonist, or your selected target, the more chance of that 10 and 20% proc, if you will, of happening. It will happen. So, you know, so again, the 8 beam arrays get a 10% chance. That's potentially 10% chances of reducing. Again, I would need to do some more testing to see how effectively they stack, or to see if it's used against on me. Sorry, how many times the effect will stack, if it stacks, and the usual with the stacking and diminishing returns. So that was a quick overlook at what Constable is. In my opinion, a very, very effective specialization. I would say once you've done the primary specializations, or at least the one that you plan on using, let's say it's Miracle Worker, if you filled out this tree and you're looking for a specialization, you don't fancy it being one of them, I would wholeheartedly recommend Constable, because as I said, you can use it on the space and you use it on ground. It's got some very powerful abilities, which may or may not be the case when it gets to holodeck, the main server. Obviously we're on Tribble at the moment, where player testing happens, so we'll see. But anyway, yeah, still, even if they half the effectiveness of some of these abilities, I would recommend this as a secondary specialization for you to use. It's got nothing you have to click. It's all, you get the effects of it all the time, as long as you have an antagonist. which basically just means as long as you're in combat and you're targeting someone and the combat isn't over, like that, you don't just vaporize them instantly, then you will see some benefits. And with stuff like Eye on the Prize, those benefits will increase as combat increases. So, how do you get these specialization points? Well, from level 50, every time you level up, you will get 1 specialization point. That's one that you can put in any of these specializations. You just click on it, this purchase button will highlight, click it, and it will apply, rinse and repeat. So now, when the expansion comes out, the level cap will be raised to 65. So from when you start earning specialization points, you will have enough points by the time you hit max level to fill out a secondary specialization, or 2 tiers worth of a primary specialization. Additional points you earn by filling up your experience bar as if you were doing level 60 or 65 over and over and over and over again. It's a grind, yes, but it's very worth it. And if you're doing the various reputation projects, if you're doing space queues to either get reputation or just to, try out some of the harder parts of the end game, it will be very beneficial to try to level up and get points that you can put into these specializations, and by playing that content you will get points to put into specializations. The other way to earn points, where is it? That's the wrong button. There we go. As you see on the calendar, unfortunately there isn't anything announced featured episode wise, but when you see on the calendar here, or when they announce it and you'll see it in the episodes, normally there's a featured episode tab here, a featured episode, on your first completion of it every week you can earn a specialization point from it. So that is potentially 4 specialization points over the course of a month that you will get from doing the featured episode, on top of any skill points that you earn from playing the missions and playing the game in the meantime. Also, during XP weekends, you will see your level just shoot up, especially on newer characters doing missions for the first time. You will just get loads and loads and loads and loads. So another thing to mention, when the Dominion expansion does come out and they do the Dominion characters, they will be releasing at level 60. So they will immediately have potentially they will immediately have some specializations unlocked, or points that you can spend on specializations, reputations unlocked. They won't be given any reputation gear or anything from the C store. You're going to have to earn the points yourself, and the advanced marks and all that. But as a new character, they will be able to do just about all the missions in game. Obviously, they're going to have to play through the new mission, the tutorial missions, to get to the main content, but they will straight away be able to go into all these missions and earn some specialization points, and maybe they'll put their points into Constable and they'll get some very nice points to use. So thank you for listening to me ramble about the Constable specialization. As always, I'm Samuel McCosh with Team Trekyards. Feel free to follow us, twitch.tv/Team Trekyards Stow, all one word in there. We're on Facebook as well, Team Trekyards, and website teamtrekyardstow.co.uk. Working on .com. There will be one eventually. For those of you who aren't biggest fans of .co.uk, I'm not. But that aside, follow us. Join us on TeamSpeak next time if you're part of the fleet. Join us in Twitch chat, or just simply watch along for those of you who are watching along afterwards on a Twitch replay, or when it is uploaded up onto YouTube. Yeah, please do follow along, because you will be able to see first what the next episode of SPACEDOCK Workshop in a couple of weeks' time will be. So that will be the 14th of April, and I will see you then with a new topic for SPACEDOCK Workshop. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.